Namaste. Welcome to our online Satsang. Not being good with math, I have no idea what number this is, but so it is. So, inconsistency, Emerson said, was a sign of a small mind, which I don't believe, but he said it. And so I will say it because I'm going to be inconsistent. I've said that I would not be accepting any more questions until I had managed to answer all those that came in at the first satsang. And it's a very good resolve, but our dear friend, Renat Vermeer, who always submits incredibly excellent and insightful questions, sent this a couple of days ago. And it's just too good to wait on. At least I hope you'll think it's worth it. All right. Is forgiveness of sins by God also deleting the karmic questions? Well, the first thing, it's a total fantasy. God isn't angry with us. God isn't offended with us. How could he be? The Jivatman and the Paramatman are one. They are, in a sense, the same. The one is finite and the other is infinite. Now, we, because of our twisted minds, can hate ourselves. But this isn't God's nature, to hate himself. Therefore, God can never be angry. God can never be displeased. I remember one time outlining some things that we had done in our ashram to Anandamayi Ma. And I said, is Mother pleased with this? And she said to me, it is not Mother's place to be either pleased or displeased. Which meant I couldn't manipulate Mother. If we want to look into what the ego really wants to think about it. But it's a lie. You have not offended God. You've offended against yourself. You have sinned against yourself. And you have set in motion an energy, you could call it a thought form, that is going to come into your life as a reaction, either in this life or in future lives. And that's all there is to it. It's the law, you see. Like, none of us got up this morning and all of a sudden we floated up to the ceiling and God's voice said, oh, sorry, I thought today I'd just suspend the law of gravity for a while. Idea is idiotic. Religion is usually idiotic because it comes from ignorance and manipulative ignorance. And then, of course, you have those who can say, on behalf of God, I can forgive you. Well, they are gates of hell. They're demons. I don't care how sincere they are. If they weren't evil somewhere in their mind, they couldn't come up with such an outrageous and blasphemous statement. All right? So, one, God never forgives you because God's never offended with you. So the whole question is out of it. Also, suppose you do something to me. You cheat me. I can forgive you, but you won't forgive yourself because your higher self demands the operation of the law of cause and effect. You understand, karma isn't reward, karma isn't punishment, it's reaction. Simple reaction. But it's necessary for our learning. So you have the idea, oh, Guruji has taken on our karma. Well, he's your worst enemy if he does, but of course he can't. He's a liar. He can't take on your karma. And if he took on your karma, he would harm you because he would prevent that which ultimately is for your own good. Again, see, it doesn't matter how metaphysically and abstractly we speak. We're still children. We're still into it feels good, it doesn't feel good, it hurts, it soothes, it tastes good, it tastes bad, I like it, I don't like it, it's pain, it's pleasure. So it's got nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. In the higher reaches of the mind, in which there is true Atma Jnana, this is where these things are processed. So forget it. And it's not easy to forget because I often do something really stupid and I think, oh, God, forgive me. Now that's how ingrained I am with the evil and stupid religion I was raised in, which I don't hate. Please understand, I'm not one of those people who decide to rebel against their childhood religion. But the thing is, it doesn't work that way. The karma comes to you and you respond to it. And your response to that may create more from karma. This is why Solomon said, what is that which is done? That which has been done before. He doesn't mean this is a similar action to what other people have done. He's meaning the action right now today is a fruit, a result of action done in the past. And you don't need to go to somebody who's supposedly clairvoyant to give you a past life reading. Just study your life today, and you'll know what you were like in a previous life and what your actions must have been in the previous life. Therefore, all right, now, so Renat goes on and asks about, he says, the good murderer on the cross repented his sins, and Jesus said, today you'll be with me in paradise. Actually, the word in Greek in the Gospels just means a criminal. There may be something in one of the apocryphal Gospels that said he committed murder. He had been in a scene. He was a renegade Essene, and he first met Jesus when Jesus was just a child being taken into Egypt by his parents, and he actually defended them against certain thieves who just simply killed people and took everything they had. So he'd also done a very good karma at that time. However it may be, he'd taken life somewhere along the line, and so he was being crucified. Now, Jesus said, you'll be with me in paradise. Well, that's not a big deal. Paradise is in the astral world. We all go to the astral world when we die. We may go to unpleasant astral worlds. We may go to pleasant astral worlds. But they're the very first steps on the ladder. They don't matter very much at all. So there are people in India, oh, I want to go to Krishna Loka. I want to dance with Krishna. Silly sentimentalism. You need to go to the absolute, and that's beyond the astral world and beyond the causal world. So it's a nice idea. He'd be with Jesus in paradise, but guess what? He had to come back eventually. That's very definite. Because only Atma Jnana dissolves all the karmas. Because you see, karma is in your mind. Buddha taught this, but even Buddhists like to ignore this. that your karma is in your mind. And if you cleanse your mind and change your mind, your karma is wiped out or it is changed. That happens to be the truth also, because it too is part of the dream. And since it's really just a dream, it's one of these things, it's an absolute. It cannot be altered, but it can be dissolved. That's an important thing to know about karma. You hear talk about transmutation of karma, whatever that could possibly mean. So, anyhow, it was no big thing, frankly. It wasn't like, oh, you're perfect, you're going to be a saint. Think of the hell it would be to go to the idea of heaven these people have, which is extraordinarily childish, and never get out of there and just sit there all day long with good people. And you would be bored to the point of insanity. In fact, you would eventually pray God to send you to hell, where there might be some activity. So it says here then, the story of the prodigal son shows again full forgiveness. Yes, forgiveness. Doesn't mean anything. Let's say that the prodigal son, when he was ruining his life, had destroyed some major organs in his body and was chronically ill. Well, the father welcoming him back wouldn't change it. What had happened had happened. Let's say he'd done something, gone blind in one eye. Well, when his father welcomed him in his home, he didn't say, wonderful, I now can see in that eye. No, he wouldn't have. So you see, there's just too much talk about love, that love does everything and love heals everything. It's not true. That's not true in the least. Only illumination, only liberation takes care of everything. And that's absolutely so. The idea of the story is to show that we're in an eternal relationship with God, and no foolish action can wipe that out. That's the story. That's part of the idea. But you understand, in these partial religions that have only a partial view, don't look to them for the total in-depth view that's going to give you the whole idea. In other words, Swami, a friend of mine, a very intellectual man, found himself very displeased with, and he used to quote and even laugh at Shivananda's words, read Gita, read Upanishads, and attain moksha. Well, Shivananda didn't mean that's all it took to attain moksha, but he did mean this is where you find out how it goes and how it works and what it means. So frankly, Sanatana Dharma is that. It isn't the religion of India any more than geometry is Greek, even though geometry flourished and was discovered mostly in Greece. So it's wrong. We talk about Hinduism. Well, a Hindu is someone who lives in the Indus Valley. Most of the people in India do not live in the Indus Valley. So how are they going to be Hindus? It's Sanatana Dharma. It's like 2 and 2 are 4. It isn't the property of anybody. It's the truth. It's the reality. And in Sanatana Dharma, as it is, in its pure expressions, and there's lots of impure expressions in certain books that claim to be scriptures that are far more superstition than their truth. But when we go to these fundamental texts there's where you're going to find out about it. And of course, it's good to find somebody that by their own development has learned it. But only in these sacred texts found in India do we have the whole picture. Nobody else has the whole picture. In fact, very few people have half a picture. That's the truth. It's not sectarian. It is just the facts. It doesn't matter that it occurred in India. In other world cycles that maybe they discovered in what's today Australia. But the fact that it is Sanatani, it is eternal. This is what matters. So if you find a source from outside this, that it's a little iffier, it's a little strange, you don't have to bother with it, because it's not something you've got to give your wholehearted attention to. That's the truth. So how's that for narrow-mindedness? It's like when Arjuna wanted to be taught by Dronacharya what we call the arts of war, Drona said, all right, I'll have to test you out, see whether you've got the basic qualifications. So he had a wooden bird hanging in a tree. It was, the size of an ordinary bird, but it was hanging there. And he said, now, what you've got to do is shoot out its eye. Now think how small the eye of a bird is. And this would be, say, a bird, like a robin, a pigeon, whatever. So it was hanging up there high in the tree. And he said, so take aim. So Arjuna took the bow and he pulled back the arrow and he looked up. Drona said, now do you see the bird? He said, no. Drona thought, what's with this man? Do you see the tree? No. What do you see? I only see the eye of the bird. Only the thing that was the goal of the arrow. That is what we all need. None of us needs another religion. We need to know the way to the goal and then go. But of course, if we don't want to really go there, we just become religious and we write books like Nirmalananda Giri does. So, if we've learned our lesson, is there still a need for karmic consequences? Well, of course. Because what do you mean by learn a lesson? Oh, I shouldn't have done that? That's pretty feeble. Again, can new positive karma neutralize old negative karma? No. If I stole in 20 lives and then I give to charity to poor people in 20 lives, I'm still going to get stolen from. There you are. There are the people they try to pretend is yoga. Oh yes, they'll say Yoga Sutra says substitute negative thoughts with positive thoughts. You find that for me. It talks about the work with thoughts and so on, but nothing as silly and platitudinous as that. If you're not enlightened, you're not enlightened. If you haven't transcended samsara, you haven't transcended it. And the most ignorant person today on earth, or the most evil person and the most negative person, is in the same world that you and I are in. So what special edge do we have? Therefore, Arjuna, become a yogi. There were people who did something that was wrong, And so they were going to get reprimanded for it, they figured. So since they might get reprimanded, they became repentant. Isn't that noble? And they came to Yogananda because they lived in the ashram and asked, for help. Or do you forgive me? All this. And they even said, oh, you'll help us, won't you? And Yogananda walked out on them. But as he was walking out the door, he said, change yourself. Yes. Yoga is the only way that the consciousness is changed. It's the only way. So all talk about forgiveness and not forgiveness, so even talk about karma means nothing. If you are truly enlightened, you don't have any karma. So that's all you've got to do. It's a very big package comes along with that one simple thing that is so impossible, unfortunately, to people who are deluded. All right, now I took a long time on that, didn't I? I said, all right, now we're going back into the past, and I would like insight into the nature of the ego's resistance to meditation and methods of counteracting this. Extremely intelligent question. Why does the ego resist? Because it doesn't want to die. Because it will die, it will be dissolved, because it's a lie right now. You see, everything in the universe is alive because it is a manifestation of the absolute life. Therefore, there is a potential intelligence inside of many things. Don't be deceived. An object like this can radiate a certain magnetism according to how it's been treated, how it has been dealt with. Physical objects do have a vibration and they do respond to vibration. Now, we know plants do. They're more responsive, of course, but even physical objects. So then the mind has its own life. I found it frightening. When I was beginning meditation, I mean, I'm serious. I found it very frightening that I would sit for meditation at about 20 or 30 minutes. My mind would be, oh, why don't I quit? And my legs ache and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. There are people that talk about the inner child. Doesn't that sound sweet? It's the inner brat that is the real trouble. So my inner brat said, I'm bored and my legs hurt and so on. And so I said to myself, okay, I'm going to get up and quit. And then it stopped. My discomfort stopped. My restlessness stopped. And oh, come on, stopped. And then about 10 more minutes went by and then legs hurt. And I found that I could say, I am bored with this. I'm getting up and going to do something I like. Mind would shut up. Now, that I'm insane, I have no doubt. But of course, as the Chestercrat said to Alice, you wouldn't be here if you weren't crazy. So we're all crazy together. We're trying to get cured and released. So the ego has this seemingly separate life of its own from ourselves, but way deep inside, it's still our own will. and resist meditation because meditation is the only thing that's going to free us from the grip of the ego. It is the only thing that's going to cure us of our really disgusting addictions to really disgusting and foolish and moronic things. And therefore it says, I don't wanna. Do I have to? No, you don't have to. Don't. You see? Let me tell you something. A person that thinks they're a yogi that has to get a pep talk every so often, that has to be inspired, they're not a yogi at all right now. Now that's the real truth. A yogi is a person like Arjuna who says, there's a target, I go. Now that doesn't mean we don't fool around, we don't make mistakes. But a person that has to be assured, oh, don't worry, it'll be worth it all once you're enlightened. They just don't belong. They don't. They need to learn how to go bowling and take up a charitable enterprise to support. So it is the demon within that tries to get out of it. And you see, there's an interesting example of this in The Way of a Pilgrim. If you haven't read the book, it's a very interesting book. Written in the 19th century. And they practice constant prayer in the name of Jesus, and that's the subject of the book. And so a man tells about how he had a mischievous grandchild, and he wouldn't be quiet, he wouldn't keep still. So he'd say to him, you've got to say the prayer of Jesus. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. And quit fidgeting. Well, he quit fidgeting, but then he wouldn't say it. So he had a stick, and he'd pick it up and show him, like, I'm going to give you a whack. And then he would take it up. The mind is like that. It's a child, but it's a devil child. So you just face it and say, tough, because you are going, but I, the real me, I am remaining. And you don't listen to it. One of the Christian fathers of the desert said, suppose you live in Alexandria and you've associated with a lot of undesirable people, and you're in the habit of going out and having a good time. But you decide to live a life of virtue, and you decide to live an inner life and cultivate spiritual life. Well, your old friends will still come, they'll knock at the door, they will call out, come on, we got a really fun place to go to, and so on. And he said, you don't say, no, I'm not going. You just don't answer. You just sit there, quiet in the house, and don't answer. And that's exactly what you do. You meditate anyway. You don't need a method of counteracting them, because they're you. They're a part of you. They're your inner cussedness. And what you do is say, sorry, I'm not paying any attention, and you go ahead and do it. Meditation is the only answer. There is no pre-meditation. There is no leading up to meditation, you see. Fake yoga does this. Oh, yes, I am going to meditate. Well, first, I will read a book of inspirational ideas. So for 3-4 minutes, I will sit and read. Oh, beautiful thoughts, so beautiful. And then maybe I'll sing a little song. Oh God, I yearn for thee. Yeah, all right, fine. Now, oh, I know. I'll do a little breathing. Yes. You'll never get there. You'll never make it to meditation. You either do meditate or you don't meditate, and you don't work up to it. And what is meditation? It's very simple. It's what Gorakhnath and Machendranath wrote. It's 3 sentences. The breath comes in with the sound of soul, and the breath goes out with the sound of hum. Sentence number 1. Sentence number 2. There is no vidya, there is no knowledge, high knowledge, superior to this. And there never shall be any knowledge superior to this, which means once you know this, you know the absolute highest knowledge that exists in the universe. And then the 3rd sentence, there is no, but it puts it all in one there. There is no japa equal to this, and there never shall be japa equal to this. And this is very important, because since the first part tells us that the sound of soul and the sound of hum are going on automatically, we can, as part of this cussed desire to get out of real meditation, decide, I'll just sit there and I'll get in touch with it. And I'll passively listen to the soul and the hum and so on, which is possible to do. I've done it. But when I did it, suddenly I remembered, wait a minute. 3rd sentence, japa. Japa is saying a mantra. It's not just hearing a mantra. It is saying it. It is generating the sound. You see, the eye cannot generate visual phenomena, pictures of things. The nose cannot generate smells. The tongue cannot generate taste. But the faculty of speech is both hearing and creatively doing it and making it happen. You can't do japa that isn't an act. Well, why is it called a japa? Because you are doing what goes on all the time anyway. That's a japa. But you're linking your capacity with that. Real meditation is not chills and thrills. But this I can tell you, if you practice correctly, you will come to see aspects of the faculty of speech itself. There's no way I can describe it. And you will understand the power to generate this shabda, to generate this sound. And that's what you go into more and more. You sit there, you close your eyes. When the breath goes in, you mentally intone soul, and when it goes out, you mentally intone hum. And after a while, it gets subtler and subtler. So it's not like saying it as I am now. It's very, very soft. Finally, it's a whisper. And then it isn't even that. And I don't mean you'll go into the silence. You will remain doing the mantra, but it will have come into the level of will. And in subtle existence, well, I just can't. There is no description of it, because all of our words of description have to do with the senses. And this is beyond the senses. But that's what you do. You don't have to work up to it at all. At first, it got me sort of antsy, because I thought, wait a minute, huh? For 50 years, I've worked up to it. For 50 years, I've got ready for it. And now I'm just doing it? That's right. In other words, you've fiddled away 50 years of your life. Now let's do something real. And it's that simple, simple, simple thing, which, of course, the ego hates because you can't argue with simplicity. If there's all kinds of complications and there's elaborations, well, you can get lost in it. Oh, look at this over here. Well, and of course, don't forget there's this point. And then you could ignore all about reality, which is your own true self, which means you can forget all about yourself. Yes. All right. Importance of physical health for the yogi, extremely important. The idea, oh, be above it. Or here's yogi so-and-so that can sit on 5 or 6 spikes, but yet go into deep meditation. Well, this is just carnival sideshow nonsense. It is also idiotic to say only in a healthy body there's a healthy mind. That's crazy. There have been great, great saints and masters who were severely ill, but their mind was not ill. But it is important because you need to be able to focus your mind and keep it at the point where it needs to be. And if you've got all kinds of aches and pains, or if suddenly one ear doesn't seem to be functioning, or whatever, then you get distracted from it completely. But good health is essential, and there is no good health for someone who takes animal protein into their body. Now, obviously, killing a poor chicken, chopping off its head or wringing its neck, as they did in the farm days when I was a child, and letting the poor thing flop around till it doesn't bleed anymore, and then dipping it in boiling water and ripping its feathers off, and then cutting it in pieces and frying it or baking it or boiling it. Nor is saying to a mother, that stuff in your breast is for your baby, but I want it because it's got sunshine vitamin D in it and it's good for me. And not only that, I want to make some cheese out of it. That's not a way a human being treats the lower levels of creation. The cruel exploitation it takes to keep a cow constantly pregnant or constantly lactating and taking from that mother, for even animals love their offspring, or at least are attached to them. And so then you take that child from the mother who grieves and grieves and grieves, but you pull on her udders and you get the milk. And maybe you've got a dairy farm, and so you sell the product of your cruelty off to other people with no more better sense than you've got. Therefore, and karma, here is karma. Dairy products incurs tremendous karma because they involve tremendous suffering for innocent animals. And then killing and eating. Well, you're not a human being, you're a devil. Demons just don't get enlightenment. Demons can't be yogis. So first of all, you can't have a healthy mind in a body that is composed of the magnetism of animals that in themselves are not bad people, but do they have willpower? No, they run through instincts. And you get it from their flesh. I knew 2 brothers that had lived very foolishly and suddenly realized we've got to change. And the first thing they did is they became pure vegetarians. They had not much sense. And then they began the practice of meditation. Okay, things seemed going better. And then one day, one of them got the idea of, oh, I just love salmon. I really like salmon. And you know, it's said that like fish and fowl, it's not as serious and not as detrimental to eat this. So he went and got himself some canned salmon and ate it. And for over a week was bothered intensely by urges of lust, of sex, of lust. And he was floored. How could this happen? I mean, then he remembered, when did they catch the salmon? When the salmon is going up against the current, even up mountains, to get to where he could fertilize the eggs. And this is something very interesting because the male does not have contact physically with the female. But still, it's that urge because he's going to fertilize the eggs and reproduction takes place. And still, there's a fundamental vibration there. And so he was overwhelmed by that. In other words, the urge of the fish went into his mind. If I said, I've thought up a really great thing, I can graft part of a sheep's brain on this part of your brain, and over here I can put a bit of a cow's brain. Just think, you won't just have your own brain, you'll have maybe 4 or 5 brains of other animals. You'll understand lower human life, lower animal life then, won't you? You wouldn't do that. But we're all crazy enough to have eaten this stuff. So that's where physical health lies. You don't have to bother with hatha yoga. It isn't yoga at all. The real term is hatha kriya, which is purification of body. But if your diet is purified, you'll be all right. Of course you have to. You don't take in alcohol. You don't take in all these poisonous things. You don't smoke cigarettes. You purify your diet, absolutely. And then you follow the moral precepts of yama and niyama, because it's very clever to say, though it's exaggeration, only in a healthy body do you have a healthy mind. But I can tell you this, only with a healthy mind will you have a truly healthy body, because your body and mind are just interlocked. So if you don't follow the moral precepts of yoga, of yama niyama, you're not going to have real health either that way. So it isn't just important, it's essential. And I guess I've talked about what to consume or avoid. And yes, of course, we can talk about organic and inorganic and this and that. But I don't want to start on diet. One of Yogananda's very great disciples was Yogacharya Oliver Black, who lived in Detroit. I was fortunate enough to spend time with him. One time I spent an entire day with him from early morning clear through. And he had a lot to say and a lot of wisdom. And he spoke on Sundays in the auditorium of the Detroit Art Institute. Brilliant speeches. And then at one point, they arranged that they could go down to the cafeteria, which wouldn't be open, but people could say bring their own kind of, lunch, like in the old days when I was a kid, we took to school with us. And we could all go down there, and then people could eat together, and Mr. Black would talk to people and he would answer their questions. Now, it was a huge crowd every Sunday. But interestingly enough, the times I went downstairs, there weren't even 20 people there. I think that said something. But anyhow, so in one of the times we were talking, and he was a disciple of his guru. And Yogananda was not a mean person, and he wasn't a harsh, bitter speaking person, but he said things really very, very straightforwardly, because that's what truth is. So I remember one time Mr. Black said, "You've got all these people here in America that think they're yogis. And of course, the vast, vast majority of them, they're out in California. But if you'll just go and you don't have to spend hardly an hour with them. They'll talk a little bit about something they maybe read in a holy book. They may say a little bit about some kind of words of wisdom they've read. But then they'll talk about only two subjects: their diet and their bowel movements, because they live only at the top and the bottom of their digestive tract." Are they yogis? He asks the question, are they yogis? The answer is no. So obsession with these things is also not the way at all of a yogi. You see, no matter how important something is, there still has to be a perspective about it. All right? Yes. Let's see. Yes. I don't know if Alan's in here, in the room now. The Srimad Bhagavatam. Well, first of all, you don't have to worry. It has a lot of very true philosophical principles scattered through it. But most of it is pure bunkum. And most of it is just fairy tales. So first of all, we don't have to worry about it. If it says anything that we wonder about, you know. I'm thinking of some choice quotes from Srimad Bhagavatam I could give that you would no doubt find very shocking, because they are shocking. They're unbelievable things to say. Okay, please comment on Krishna having thousands of wives and palaces. Is it far-fetched? Am I missing something? Yes, obviously. You're missing something. You're missing the fact that Krishna engaged in a war. It was a big war. We're not talking about Mahabharata war. And he won. But in the war, many small kings, you understand, you can speak of a kingdom in India. It could just be not as big as a county in America. There were many Rajas, you see, many small states. So anyway, they'd been killed. So what's going to happen to their families? What's going to happen to their wives? And therefore, Krishna built an entire city, a huge city. And very, very, what would we say, for people who were used to wealth. It wasn't just basics. And he said, all right. And then he married all of them. Yes, they married all of them. Therefore, then you see, there was that bond there, and therefore he could provide everything for them. He was, you understand, he only had Rukmini. He had one wife, Rukmini. But he did this so there would be a bond that no one could interfere with, and no one could also run in and say, oh, hey, I like the former Ronnie of so-and-so, I think I'll marry her. He was protecting them as well. So that's what he did. And Sri Gajanana Maharaj talks about this. He talks about the people that will read something, and he mentions the example, this very example, and say, well, I mean, Krishna had all these wives and this and that. And of course, it isn't just a misunderstanding, it's a willful misapplication. So people try to use the Vrindavan Leela, Krishna dancing with the gopis. And these perverted Vaishnavas, and there are perverted Vaishnavas, who talk about Christians' transcendental lust. I'm giving you a quote from the founder of the Hare Krishna movement in America. Krishna left Vrindavan when he was 12 years old. You follow me? This Rash Leela took place when he was around 9 or 10. The gopis and gopas, because there weren't just female, they were his own age. It was children. I mean, I know that ruins it for a lot of people that want to think about, well, here is the gorgeous 18-year-old woman and girl, and she's at home, and suddenly the flute sounds, and her parents say, no, you're not going out tonight. And she says, but I love him. And they run off, and they all dance around, and oh, lovey. Impossible. Radha was even younger than Krishna. Radha was about 3 years younger than Krishna. So there wasn't any lust of any kind, transcendental or otherwise. This is really important. And I've got 8 minutes left. How to control the mind. First of all, control yourself. Control your diet. Control your way of life. And second, be a real yogi. Japa and meditation of Soham. Japa when you're not meditating, and meditation when you can then sit and devote the time. And when you do that, you will transmute your mind. And your true mind, your true Atmic consciousness will manifest. And you will be a Jivan Mukta, a liberated person. Oh, I didn't need 8 minutes, did I? And I'm not soft soaping you. Like I say, I'm not kidding you. 50 years, I've fiddled away my life with fake gurus and fake yogas that had only fake effects and worthless effects that meant nothing. Oh, I had visions. I had intuitive knowledge. I could look at a person, know about them. There was a time where I could see a person, I knew their name. I mean, you don't know that I'm telling you the truth, but it happened. I see on television, I'd know their name as well as in real life. There was a time where I could see right through walls. Heaven knows why, but I did. And then I would be in a room and I would see what was going to start taking place in the room, say in about 30 minutes. I would see it be like shadow figures that would come in and do these things. And so I'd think, well, can that be true? So I just sit there and wait. And sure enough, it would happen. They say if you talk about these psychic things, you lose them. Well, I certainly wanted to. So I sat down and I wrote to about 4 people. And I said, I'm knowing everybody's name when I see them. I'm seeing what's taking place before it takes place. And I can walk down the street and look inside the buildings, even multi-story buildings, and see what's going on. It'd be nice if you'd pray for this to stop. And it stopped. I'm very glad to say. All because it was abnormal. And it all came from the abnormal practices of these phony yogis. But that's what you do. And if you do it, you got it. Yes, I advise you, read my book, Soham Yoga. And Light of Soham, the biography of Sri Gajanana Maharaj, which contains his teachings. And then also I have a book, Inspired Wisdom, where I comment or expand more on some of the things he said. A book which, by the way, I'm intending to rework and make even longer. Learn it and do it. And it doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not, whether you think it's stupid, whether you think, how could this work? Well, it works. And you'll find out how it works. And this is the way you're a yogi. It's very, very simple. And then you won't have to worry about control in that sense. You say, oh, I've got to get a hold of my mind now because I've got to meditate. Yes. So I've gone through 3 or 4 shilly-shally practices and supposedly start making my mind one-pointed. Now, all right, I really mean it. I've seen people meditate going like that. I'm not making fun of them. I mean, the poor people didn't realize. Some of them didn't know they were doing that. But they followed phony yoga as I was following it. And we all had stories about, oh, what Guruji did, and oh, what wonderful Maharaj did, or what wonderful Ma did, you know, to entertain ourselves and then just sit and bore ourselves to death with this get you nowhere type of path. So take it and do it. I don't want to inspire you to do it. And you know, I'm not even advising you to do it. I'm saying for information, this is what's done. And it's all right if you don't, because I'm doing it. And I'm very, very, very satisfied with it and with the effects. And so, if I was the only yogi in the world, frankly, I couldn't care less, because I've only got one poor fool to look after, and that's Swami Nirmalananda Giri. So, thank you. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you for listening to my rambling. But now, you won't have to keep hearing me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you very much.